Hello, and welcome to another edition of From the Source, COVID-19 Pandemic Edition. I'm your host, Elizabeth Johnson, bringing you the latest information regarding the changes occurring in your community during this pandemic. I had the opportunity to speak with Nassau County District Attorney Madeline Singas on how her office has been impacted by the pandemic.
Good morning, Madeline. How are you doing today?
Good morning. I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me.
I see that you are now back in your office. How is that going? Is this your first day there?
No, I've been coming in, periodically every few days. But it feels good actually to be back in the office. You sort of feel like you're back to normal when you can get up, you can get out of your sweatpants, you can put on your suit and drive and come into the office. So it feels good. It feels really good to be back.
I'm glad to hear it. With this COVID pandemic, I'm sure the entire office has changed. How has it impacted the district attorney's office?
Well, it has impacted us significantly. We had to go virtual in, practically overnight. In about 2.5 weeks, we had to take our entire operation and move it virtually. So that includes court appearances and all the things that we normally do in our day-to-day operations now had to be done from people's homes, from their computers at home. So we had to set up our assistant DAs with computers. So it's as if they were sitting at their desks in the office, but they're really at home, and making sure that those connections were secure, because a lot of the issues that we deal with in the cases obviously are very sensitive. So we had to make sure that those proceedings were secure. We had to make sure that we could coordinate with the court system and the defense bar and witnesses and everyone involved in the system, corrections, to produce defendants, that all of that could go virtually and we could keep doing the people's business and yet do it virtually. So it was a Herculean task. And I have to say our IT department, with the IT departments of the court system, and the defense bar, have really they were working so hard for so long so that we could quickly get up to speed. And, I'm proud to say that in Nassau County, we did it. So the work was able to be done. It was just done virtually.
And the cases that are going to trial by jury, that's not occurring right now, is that?
Yeah, that's not occurring, right? So everything is happening up until that point. We have court proceedings, judges make decisions. We have motion practice. We're able to take pleas. In fact, we took one last week, a murder plea that involved many people who were speaking, and all of that was done virtually, which was an incredible feat again. But things that can't be done are jury trials. Anything that we need jurors for, where people have to come in to our courthouse, is still on pause. So we're working that out. Grand jury notices have been sent out, and next Monday we expect some grand jurors to come in so that we can have indictments and perhaps seat people in juries for jury trials. That's the challenge for the court system. We're talking to our leaders in Albany and all the other offices throughout the state. I'm constantly in contact with the other DAs so that we can make sure we're borrowing and sharing information for some people who may be a step ahead of us or a step behind us. We're gleaning information, sharing information so that we can make this part of it as safe and seamless as we can. And that's the challenge, making sure that jurors will feel safe coming into the courthouse, that we're finding our biggest courtrooms for them to be able to sit in and still be able to socially distance, that we have masks available, and our cleaning crews are constantly cleaning. That's the challenge for us, as it is in so many industries, just getting people back in to spaces that they have to share.
Right. Now, what changes have been made in the offices at the district attorney's office for your employees?
Right. So for the most part, most people are at home. And again, we worked hard to make sure that they had the capacity to dial in and, through team meetings or Zoom so that we can make sure court appearances go on. All of our meetings are on Zoom. We do them virtually or through any other platform. We recently, about a third of the office at a time comes in every 3 weeks. So we have 3 teams. We split the office into team blue, team orange, team yellow. That represents about a third of the office on each team. So we're able to socially distance in the office. So if you have a private office, that's great. And we encourage people, obviously, to stay in their offices. If you're sharing an office, we make sure that we're only sharing, we put people on opposite teams so that they're not sharing the same office during the day. We have made accommodations for people to spread out. If you're using common areas, you have to wear a mask. We had to do away with our small kitchens and our water coolers and so on, because that's usually places where people congregate. So we're not doing that any longer. We're finding our biggest conference rooms so that we can interview witnesses and maintain social distance. There are temperature checks coming into the office, so we make sure, asking some questions to make sure people are feeling okay before they come in. If anyone is feeling under the weather, we're telling them to please stay home and monitor their symptoms. But again, we're trying to do as much as we can away from the office, but when we're in the office, again, we're using pretty severe precautions, and we're just communicating constantly with our staff so that they can tell us if anything's going on. And this team approach will allow us, if, God forbid, someone does get sick or someone is symptomatic, we can keep that entire team home. So we've done that so they can remain sequestered if a team member is ill, so that they're not mingling every day with the rest of the office. So the team concept is they work for a week, then they work from home for 2 weeks. So in that 2-week period, we'll know if someone is symptomatic, and then we'll just isolate those team members that way. So, we've had to be innovative and really creative, and we're talking, a lot of our meetings are centering around things like this, like social distancing and team concepts and things that I never would have imagined I'd be talking about as the district attorney, right? But that's what this pandemic has forced us to deal with.
And I understand that your staff has, knock on wood, been all safe from COVID so far?
Yes, thank God. We have to say the staff is really healthy, and everyone is taking precautions and in their own, family lives. And right from the beginning, when this was emerging in March, we were, passing around Purell and it's wiping down all our surfaces and making sure all our common areas were clean. And, we took it seriously right from the beginning. And we continue to, because it's paramount. The health of our staff is paramount to me, and the health of the community, our witnesses and so on who come into our doors. We want to make sure that they're comfortable and they're safe.
I also know you had said a while back that you use a dog in certain cases with children. How is that going forward? Is it still being done? I mean, they're so wonderful.
Yeah, well, we have a service dog. Her name is Mega. She is an invaluable member of our staff, and we utilize her when we have witnesses who might need a little more support. We find that children respond so well to her. Her presence calms them down, and sometimes for adults as well, we'll bring Mega in, and she just knows how to comfort and give security to our vulnerable victims. Of course, it's getting harder now because they're not in the office, and we're not bringing her to people's homes because, again, she has handlers, assistant prosecutors who work with her, and we're not going into people's homes. So
Right. Okay.
that becomes a challenge for us. But we're hoping that as soon as we're up to speed again, that Mega will be again one of our vital employees. She has an ID, an identification tag as well, and she's been known to come into many of our offices, including mine, at the end of a long day to help us unwind and take our mind off of the day to day sometimes. So she's awesome, and I'm hoping we can even expand the program because it really helps so many people. Like the animals just give, these dogs and Mega especially, just gives unconditional love. And this is, when you come in as a crime victim to a DA's office, and it's nothing that you've ever experienced before, you've usually undergone some traumatic event. There's a lot of activity. There's a lot of people that you don't know. So we work hard to make people comfortable, make them feel that they can open up to us. And again, we work with a lot of human crime victim advocates as well as our service animal.
Speaking of investigating, how has the pandemic impacted your staff to investigate a case? Obviously, that I guess there are limitations now that are set up. Perhaps you can expand upon that.
Right. It's been difficult, but we've been really sort of proactive, and we're trying to figure out different ways to investigate crime. So it's hard to bring in witnesses, but we'll talk to witnesses via Zoom or on FaceTime through phones. We can still do a lot of our investigations because they're paper-based, and we can subpoena records, and we can still analyze those, and have our forensic accountants review things. So a lot of that work can still get done and is being done every single day. And of course, every time there's an arrest made in the county, there are arraignments being done. We interview our victims. We are very reactive to the crimes that are coming in and setting up people. If no one has the technology to speak to us, then we'll make arrangements for them to actually come into the office so we can speak to them, again, socially distanced, so we can get the information, convey that information to whoever may need it, whether that's a judge in making decisions. So those things are moving. Where it's taking us, where it's a little more complex, is on our own proactive investigations, our white-collar investigations, our public corruption investigations. It used to be that people would often just drop into our offices to report something. And now, of course, that's not happening because people are nervous about coming into any municipal building. So again, but we're making use of our technology. We're getting the information that we need. We're making sure that we're talking to people. We have a lot, like I said, our crime victim advocates are reaching out to people who we feel are vulnerable in cases that we already have to make sure they're okay. So the operation here is bustling. We are actively working hard and keeping the county safe.
So at the beginning of the pandemic, I believe everyone was probably like terrified and stayed in place. But as things continued, more, I'm sure crime started up again, and I'm hearing that quite a few scams are going on. Can you tell us what has been one of the main scams, or one of several you've been dealing?
Well, unfortunately, these scams respond to whatever's going on in the community. So what we were seeing a lot of and continue seeing are what we call these grandparent scams, where people call up either seniors or other people and create this sense of urgency that something has happened that needs immediate attention and immediate funds. So your grandson has been in an accident and they need money right away because the doctors won't treat them unless you can pay X amount of dollars. Or they were away. These now have abated a little. People were away on vacation and got into a serious accident or got arrested and suddenly need funds to get them back to the United States. And they create this sense of urgency, and people pay that because they're nervous for their loved ones. Today, a lot of what we're seeing and in the last few months have been these pandemic ones. We know you've taken the test and you need to pay us this amount of money so we can release your test results. Or we have, equipment, masks that are 100% guaranteed. So pay us this money and we'll send you this, this PPE, the protective equipment that people need. Things of that nature. Or again, just preying on people's fears. So whatever those fears might be, scammers will prey on those fears and attempt to get money from people. So, we're aware of them. And what I often advise people to do is to just take a moment, right, and just think about what's going on here, what people are asking for, sort of de-escalate that emergent situation that they're trying to create, and say to them, you know what, I hear you, can you give me your phone number and I'll call you back. It's that break will sometimes, of course, they're not going to give you a phone number. They're not expecting you to call back. That'll be the end of it. And that break will give you a moment to think, wait, is this something that's logical? Is this something that makes sense? And don't give people your social security numbers or your financial numbers over the telephone, or, the IRS scams, that their agents are waiting to arrest you because you haven't paid X, Y, or Z unless you give over your social security number and your bank account. That's not how the IRS operates. So if you can just slow down, take a break, and think through what's going on, you'll see that you're being scammed, because most people after it happens say, oh, I can't believe I fell for that. It sounds so silly when I say it out loud, what it was that they were asking me to do. But we say, look, it happens because they create this situation that makes you so nervous and afraid. And of course you want to help your loved one. So you're going to do whatever it is that they're asking. So again, I tell people, ask for a callback number, take it down a notch, hang up, call, a son or daughter who they're claiming is in trouble, bounce it off someone else, call the authorities, call the DA's office, call police, so that you can see that this is a scam. And, I even tell my own relatives who are older, don't answer the phone. If there's a number there that you don't recognize, because everyone has their names associated with the phone number, right? So it'll pop up and you'll see who's calling you. But if you see a number that you're not accustomed to seeing, don't answer. If it's someone that needs you, they're going to leave a message. You can check that message and then you can call them back. So I think that's a good tip as well.
Right. During this pandemic, there has been an increase, unfortunately, in alcohol use, as well as opioids, and I'm sure an increase in domestic violence. I know you're a very strong proponent of it. Have you seen any cases come across your desk?
Well, we know that, from experience and from what we're hearing, that domestic violence cases are going up. And it makes sense to those of us in law enforcement because we understand sort of the dynamics of what fuels domestic violence. And people who are in abusive relationships, right, women mostly, some men, but mostly women, are now in a position where they were sheltered in with their abuser. And to compound that, people are feeling stress. They're feeling financial stress. They may be drinking more. They may be using opioids or self-medicating. They're angry. That combination does not end well for the woman in that relationship who may be, in a vulnerable situation and is abuse victim. And normally what happens is when a woman is in a situation like that, she'll find relief when she leaves her home and she'll go to school and then will be able to talk to a classmate or a teacher, or goes to work and a friend of hers at work will be like, what's going on? You don't seem okay. And she'll be able to open up. Or we'll have the opportunity to go see an advocate and work with so many of the great organizations that we have here in Nassau County, and make a phone call privately and tell them what's going on so that they can start making a plan, or call the police, or come into a DA's office, or get some assistance from her family or friends. That happens when she's able to leave and create some distance between her and her abuser. So what's happening during a pandemic is that distance, there's no distance, right? So you're stuck at home, trapped essentially in a situation that's very stressful already, and then add on the pandemic issues, and you'll never get an opportunity to leave. And he never leaves. Like, he never goes out of the house. So you have an opportunity to either call the police, or call your parents, or call a friend, or call somebody who can help you. So I'm afraid that, yes, calls have gone up to DV hotlines, but I'm also afraid, and I'm gearing up my Special Victims Bureau, that I think once this lifts and people are free to go out, we're going to see a tremendous increase in domestic violence cases when women are finally able to tell us what's been going on in their homes for the last 3 months. And I'm worried about that, and all of us in law enforcement are worried about that. And the same goes for our children, right? Child abuse cases usually come to us through mandated reporters like teachers, people who have eyes on kids and say, wait a minute, they're acting strangely, or they have a lot of bruises, or kids just sometimes open up to their teachers because they trust them. And we get information that way. Same thing with our elders, right? Our seniors are often going to doctor's appointments, and the doctors and nurses who see them every week or every month can note a change, can see what's going on. If they have some injury, we'll talk to them if they seem stressed or just out of sorts. We'll ask a few questions and get to the bottom of something, or they'll feel comfortable in telling them what's going on, that they're being abused in their home by someone who wants their money, or etc. All of those things are not happening now because we're living in times that are not normal, and they don't have those outlets. The victims don't have the outlets to tell people what's going on, and the people who normally have an opportunity to see them and have eyes on them also don't have that opportunity because they're behind closed doors. So that's what has me especially stressed as we begin to open, and I worry about women and children and our seniors in abusive relationships that are seemingly all alone and feel isolated and feel vulnerable and are scared. So I'm nervous for them, and I just want people to know that we're here. If you're in danger, to call 911. We are, arrests are being made. There's emergency housing. If someone is in danger, we can move you. Orders of protection are being issued. The process is moving forward. We can protect you, but again, and I also tell people to, if they think that their abuser is looking at their phone, to take pictures of whatever injuries, to keep a diary, of sorts, so that we know if we want to pursue a criminal case, how is it that we will pursue it? It'll be like, I remember a week ago or 2 weeks ago. That's not specific enough. So write down what's happening, the dates, take pictures, and then email them or text them to someone that you trust, and then erase them off your phone if you're afraid that your abuser is actually looking at your phone and going through it, which we know that abusers do, because that is part of the control of a person. Who are you talking to? What kinds of things are you communicating about? So take the pictures and send them out, and then delete them so that someone else has them that you trust. And I tell people, again, if you know someone who may be in a situation, to call them on the phone. Texting is unfortunately not enough, because someone can text, I'm fine, and you'll never know if they're really fine. But someone that a friend of yours, your sister, a family member, your mother, if you pick up the phone and say, how are you? You'll be able to tell by how they answer if they're really okay or not okay. So I tell people to pick up the phone and call people and see if they're okay and have a conversation with them and see how they sound to you. And if you can, go by the house and just sit outside on the stoop or in the backyard and just say, come out and have a glass of water with me or a cup of coffee, and then let me just see that you're okay. It's time that we all look out for each other, because these are very stressful times. And if you're already in a compromised position, you just get more isolated and feel more alone and are much more vulnerable when you're sheltered in.
At the beginning of this year, I know that the laws changed for the police as well as the DA's office to provide information immediately. I know that you guys had implemented it. How did you manage to? I mean, that was a really tough change that occurred in the law.
Yeah, that was, it sped up the amount of time that we had to hand over material that we received from police departments and other law enforcement agencies and get it to the defense. And it sped it up significantly. So again, we were, by January 1st, when that order went into effect, we had already been building the platforms to allow us to get that information to the defense attorneys so that we could make sure that we abide by those new time restrictions. We were already in the process of doing that. We were ready to go on January 1st. We had, again, our IT departments were really remarkable, the police department, so that we can share information and have access to the reports that we need to hand over. We had spent a long time preparing for that, and actually that helped us. Those platforms were some of the same things that we were using now, right? So like we were already sending things electronically to defense attorneys, and we're just continuing to do that now. So it wasn't that much of a change. But again, that was all electronic, and we took Nassau County, at least in law enforcement, from computer systems that were basically based in the 1950s and 60s and brought everything up to speed to today in a very abbreviated time, but successfully. So we're able to hand, discovery over in hundreds of cases. We're continuing to do that, and it's allowing us as well during this pandemic to make sure that we fulfill our obligations under the law. And we keep, these cases moving and share the information that's needed so that defense attorneys and their clients can make intelligent choices about plea offers and things like that. So, yeah, it's been an incredible 6 months. I can't believe it's only July. 2020 feels like it is. So much of how we practice in the DA's office.
So, speaking of the technology, now that everybody is on the internet, do you feel that that's going to be the next wave of cases? There's a lot of investigation coming through that, and I know that you have a fantastic team in place. Do you think you're going to increase that team because of this?
Yeah, I'd love to increase that team because, again, we have been very proactive in our office in our approach to these cases and, infiltrating the dark web and making cases, through our computer crimes bureaus. And it's scary because we hear every day that people's personal savings accounts have been infiltrated and money removed, or there are many scams that go on, and as many eyes as we can have on our computers, securing our systems, making sure that we're warning the public about scams that are happening, investigating cases online. All of those help us. In a DA's office, it's sort of twofold, right? We react to the cases that are brought to us by police departments, arrests that are made. Our 26, 27 law enforcement agencies that we deal with every day make arrests, and we deal with those cases. But then there's a whole wing of our cases that are proactive, that we build ourselves in the DA's office. And a lot of those are cases that involve the internet. A lot of those are white-collar crimes cases. A lot of those are public corruption cases that we build either from tips from the community or, just based on our everyday experiences. And we continue to do those as well. So it is, a busy place, the DA's office. It always has been. It continues to be. The pandemic is not slowing us down at all. We just had to acclimate and pivot and adapt and figure out how to keep doing our work. And, I'm proud to say that Nassau County is one of the safest counties in the country, and we intend to keep it that way. And wherever new crimes come up, whatever new scams there are, whatever issues will confront us, there are subject matter experts in my office that tackle all sorts of crimes. And they are here and working hard to make sure that, again, we keep that status as one of the safest counties in the country. We have good working relationships with our police departments. We work well together. And, we're continuing to work on that. And an important part of that is making sure that our communities are involved. And one of the things that I instituted right when I became district attorney are these community councils, where we have members of the community that come in and talk to the DA's office every few weeks and tell us what's going on. What is a community worried about, focused on? Maybe there's something that we're not hearing about. We can pivot there. And engaging a community, helping us strengthen an at-risk population, or the work that we do with reentry, or the work that we do with our youth, or getting into schools. All of those here we see as crime prevention tactics. Getting into our communities, talking to our kids, making sure they understand, how vulnerable they are and why, and creating services, whether it's anti-gang education or substance abuse treatment. All of that helps strengthen our communities and helps people lead productive lives so they never have to enter our system.
Well, I want to thank you so much for joining us today. It's been very enlightening, and we appreciate the good work you have done. And good luck, because this is not over yet.
No, it's not. And you know what? Oh, my parting words are just, everyone, please wear your masks, socially distance. When we do those things, we'll be fine. We'll be on track. And I'm proud that New York is on the way down, our cases, as opposed to the rest of the country. But yeah, don't let your guard down. Be disciplined to wear your mask.
That's all for now. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned to North Shore Television as we continue to bring you the latest news that impacts your community during this pandemic. In the meantime, wear a mask, social distance, dispose of PPE appropriately in a trash bin, and stay safe.